So today is December the 9th of 2021. And what I'm going to have you do for me, sir, is state your full name and your date of birth and where you were born.
Okay, it's Warren Harding Shinn, Sr. I was born March the 5th, 1921, in Cabarrus County off, I think it's Township 5, is that right?
Right.
Yeah, Township 5.
And who are your mother and your father?
Who were they?
Yes, sir.
Okay, my father was Manlius Shinn, Manlius Joseph Shinn, and my mother was Lilius Walter Shinn.
Did you have any siblings?
I had 6.
6. So big family. That was common at the time.
Yeah, 3 brothers, 3 sisters.
Where did you fall in
I
that?
was next to the last.
Next to the last, so one of the youngest.
What?
You were one of the youngest
Yes,
then.
I had a sister younger than me.
Okay. So you grew up in Township 5.
Mm-hmm.
What are some of your earliest memories of growing up in that part of Cabarrus County?
Well, we lived on a farm, and I guess the animals, cows and horses, chickens, turkeys, things like that, I remember early in my life. And one of my first tasks, I guess you call it, that I liked was finding the hen eggs. You know, they were free, what do you call it? Free, what is it?
Free range.
Yeah, okay. And you'd have to hunt the hen nest and find the eggs. So that was a joy to me.
Oh, I bet that was fun. It was kind of like an Easter egg hunt
Yeah.
every day.
How old were you then?
Well, what's that?
How old were you?
How old were you doing at that time?
Oh, I'd say about 5 or 6, something like that. 4 or 5.
So that farm that you grew up, did your family, what was it? Obviously it was a working farm. Was it subsistence farming, or did you sell what you raised?
It mostly just subsistence. We raised some cotton that would pay the taxes on the land,
Mm-hmm.
but the rest is the things we raised were used on the farm. Most of our food came from the farm, so we didn't have to buy much food: salt, pepper, and sugar.
His father had an occupation in addition to the farm. He was a school teacher.
He was a
Yeah.
school teacher. Where did your father teach?
Well, he taught at about 6 or 7
Yeah,
schools.
we got a
There was
record
one
of that, but I'm-
one-room schoolhouse, and most of the time he was by himself. Sometimes there'd be 2 teachers there, it mostly in Cabarrus County. I think one of them was probably in Rowan County.
Yeah.
That was pretty common at that time to travel around and teach in different areas.
Yeah.
Well, he would stay there like a year or 2 at a time,
Mm-hmm.
and then he would go to a different school and stay there a year or 2.
Mm-hmm.
I went to a one-room schoolhouse 2 years, my first 2 years.
I was going to ask where you went to school.
New Gilead.
New Gilead.
Yeah.
Okay. So you went there for 2 years.
Yes.
And then where did you go?
Weinkauf. I
Weinkauf.
finished my high school there.
Over at Weinkauf. And did you go on to college, or did you go into the workforce after school?
Not then. I went to the workforce. Worked in Cannon Mills for a short time, and then got a job at the cocoa bottling plant, and stayed there about 2 years, and then went during World War II. I joined the Army, and we was gone about 3.5 years.
Wow.
Then when I came back, I had a couple other jobs, and then I decided I needed an education, so I used the GI Bill and went to school at NC State,
NC State, good school.
mechanical engineering.
So you said you started after high school. What year did you finish high school?
1939,
39. And then you started at Cannon Mills.
yes.
Which plant were you at? Which mill plant were you at? Do you remember?
It was in Kannapolis, but I can't remember the number.
What did you do at the mills?
Swept the floors.
So janitorial work. You weren't a doffer or
Yeah,
weaver or anything.
Just sweeping the floors.
Hey,
No, I didn't stay there long. I got a clean job at Coca-Cola bottling company
Coca-Cola plant. Now, which Coca-Cola plant at the time?
up on North Church Street.
Church Street.
Yeah,
Is that the one up where there's a winery there now,
Yeah.
but the Coca-Cola, the Tribune was there for a while. That's neat. There was one here in downtown. Back, they call it the Bicentennial lot now. The Coca-Cola bottling plant in Concord actually started there and then moved up on Church Street. So it was up on Church Street when you started.
Yeah.
That would have been the early 40s when you were there before
yes.
before you went
yes,
off.
Yes.
So you started there in the early 40s. And what all did you do at the Coca-Cola plant?
I was an inspector. That's all I did.
That's a good job.
It was clean.
Yeah. Better than sweeping the floors.
Yeah.
He has an interesting story about his brothers and sisters and how they would tease him, and that he used to collect coins. And you want to tell that story about how your brothers got your coins and buried them?
That wasn't my brothers. That was my nephews, I think. I had some Indian head pennies, and I think that's while I was in the Army, I believe, Air Force. And when I got back, they were gone,
Oh no.
or most of them. And later I found that, or at least this is what they told me, they took them, they were going to spend them, but they were afraid, so they buried them, but I never found them.
You never found them.
Of course, I didn't look very hard.
Now, did they bury them out on your family property, or?
Yeah.
So who knows? Somebody needs to take a metal detector out there and look for those. That would be a treasure to find. They might still be hiding out there.
Well, they might not have been telling me the truth, either.
Yeah.
True. True.
Tell them about you didn't have a bathroom, you had no electricity, and you hung your meat up to smoke it.
I remember that.
Yeah.
We didn't have electricity until I was about 15, I guess. And of course, we had to draw water out of a well
Mm-hmm.
I remember that.
and heated with wood stoves. And, what else could I say
Bathroom.
about that?
Tell her about the bathroom.
Oh, well, everybody knows about the outside bathroom. But
How were the winters?
outhouse, it was
Yeah,
called.
when you do. How were the winters back then?
It was tough. It was cold out there.
Did your mom? I know at that time period, my mom was born much later than you, but her mom, even to that point, still made her and her brother's clothes. After my mom was born in the 50s. And did your mom make a lot of yours and your siblings' clothes at that time? Was it a pretty self-sustainable
Yeah, it
lifestyle?
was. Yeah, and we had plenty to eat because we raised most of our food.
Mm-hmm.
Where'd you get all your clothes?
Well, I don't remember really. Mom wasn't too much of a seamstress, but she'd do some of it, and I got hand-me-downs most of the time because I was number 5, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
6. I was number 6.
Any other stories from your childhood?
And what are some of your favorite memories of being a child and growing up in Township 5?
Well, I remember, we had a meadow, we would mow the grass and put it, let it dry and take it to the barn. And there was a creek, in fact, it was Coldwater Creek ran down there, and after we get the hay up, or my dad would let us go swimming in the little holes in the creek there.
Mm-hmm.
That was something we looked forward to.
Tell her some watermelon stories.
What?
Tell her some watermelon stories.
We raised a lot of watermelons, and my father liked watermelons, and I did too. And it seemed like one year we got one that weighed over 50 pounds.
Oh wow.
And we didn't worry about cutting them. We'd just bust them in the field and eat the heart out of it.
Did you ever show any of your produce at the county fairs back then? I know the fair was a big deal in Cabarrus County
Yeah.
during the 20s, 30s, and into the 40s.
No, we never did it.
How about
A 50-pound watermelon, though. Wow.
how about any hunting stories?
What?
Hunting? Do you have any hunting stories?
Not really.
Y'all would go shoot your rabbits and stuff and clean them and eat them, right?
Oh yeah. In fact, I would had rabbit boxes. You've heard of them?
Mm-hmm.
Catch them, and you could sell them in town here in Concord. So I think they paid 10 cents a piece for them.
Oh, really? Where would you sell them here?
What?
Where would you sell them here in town?
Maybe a grocery store. Yeah, we'd have to skin them and dress them, and then they'd hang them up by the legs.
Tell her what happened that they had to leave the feet on.
Yeah, they had to leave the feet on because people were killing cats and trying to sell them for rabbits. And we'd kill rabbits too, squirrels too, but I didn't think they weren't very good. Rabbits are good though.
Yeah. Yeah, I can remember that.
How far of a trip was it for you to come into downtown, into Concord, when you were growing up?
About 5 miles.
Okay. So Township 5, I'm orienting myself. Do you remember what your address was, or what the
Yes.
modern address would be?
Yes, Route 3.
It's
It's on the old Concord Lake Road.
Okay.
Jerry lives
Yeah, it
up
was changed
there,
later to
about a
Center
mile
Road.
from where
It was changed, I guess it was Concord Lake Road, but it was changed to Center Grove Road.
Oh, it was, yeah,
At
okay.
some point, that portion of it.
Does the old homestead still stand, or no?
No.
Oh, that's a shame.
It's been torn down.
Been replaced twice.
Do y'all have any photographs of it? Any old photos of the old homestead, old home place at all?
I don't think
Yeah, I got some
you may have.
photos of my grandparents. That's as far as it goes, I believe,
Okay.
yeah.
That'd be neat to see, because there may be some family photos where the house is there in the background.
I'll look through some of mine if I could find them and see if I find them.
Yeah,
What about Pop, Dad? What about Pop and Mom's, Mom and Dad? What were their names and where did they live?
Well, my dad lived pretty close to where we were, grew up in that area. And my mother actually was born in Charlotte. And her name was, I gave you her name, but I don't remember how they got together, but I think I had an aunt that lived on Sap Road. Her name was Sap. And Mom came to live with her as a teenager, and she had popped bet somewhere.
What was courting like in those days? Did you have a young woman that you were sweet on when you were in school?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Do you remember
A few of them.
a few of them? Do you remember her name? And
I can't remember the names. There are too many of them.
Ashley probably won't publish this, but I remember. Tell her about your homosexual story.
Oh, I just got out of high school. We shouldn't include that one.
Yeah, it's fine. She'll edit it
I
out.
can edit this out. Yeah, this will be just between us.
Okay,
She ever hear this?
I just got out of high school and I didn't have a ride to Kannapolis to look for a job, so I'd catch a ride with some of the family coming into Concord to work. Then I'd done to Kannapolis. This man picked me up and he got to talking sort of strange on the way. And I knew what it was, so I got out of the car making about 35 miles an hour, but I didn't get hurt.
Oh goodness. That's always a scary situation to find yourself in.
Well, and to throw yourself out of the car.
At 35 miles an hour. Oh my goodness.
Well, I heard that if you have to do that, you get out running. In other words, move your legs. I was doing that, and I think it helped. I ended up maybe rolling over 3 or 4 times. But
Do you have any other funny stories?
What was your favorite subject when you were in grade school or high school?
well, I like English literature, and I also liked math, which a lot of people didn't like, but maybe it was sort of, I liked math because it was a little easier than some of the other things.
Tell Ashley about some of your trips. The one I remember in particular is when you went to Kings Mountain as a family
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, tell us some
for
of
the
your favorites.
dedication of it.
Yeah.
And y'all did something with the stones.
Yeah, after church on Sunday, we not often, but maybe once, twice a year, the whole family get in the car, maybe took a couple of cars, drive to King Mountain and have a picnic. And one time over there, they were celebrating some anniversary of the Battle of Kings Mountain, and the British general's name was well, I've lost that, but anyway, he's buried over there. He was killed on it, and whoever was in charge of the people around there said, "Now, when you leave, everybody put a rock on the general's grave." And so it was piled up full of rocks, but maybe still there.
Oh wow.
I remember that.
Yeah, it's still there. And just out of curiosity, weren't you there for the dedication when one of the presidents came?
Yeah. Herbert Hoover.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Tell her about that, about Herbert Hoover when y'all were there.
Well, he came down to speak. He came down to speak with Herbert. I see that would have been
You had been about
in
10.
the early 30s. I don't remember the anniversary.
What do you remember about the president?
I just remember seeing him talk. I wasn't much interested. I wasn't old enough to.
Yeah. And how big was the crowd?
Oh, it was about a lot of people,
Like 100 or 1,000?
hundreds.
That's neat. I'll have to look up the date because there's probably
It
some
would've been-
records of when he came down.
30, 31 probably.
So right around he was about 8, 9, or 10.
Yeah, it had been about 10, I'm thinking.
Oh, how neat! How neat have been able to see Herbert Hoover? That would have been neat to see a president.
I mean, presidents have I seen? Is that what you asked?
Yeah. Have you met any other presidents or seen
Yeah.
any other presidents live?
At Hoover, I saw, somebody came to Charlotte.
Eisenhower?
I saw Eisenhower. We were living in Atlanta, and that's before, when he was canvassing, and I was standing on the street close enough to touch his hand, I guess.
Oh, wow.
But what was the president that came in when Nixon left?
Oh, Gerald Ford?
Gerald Ford. I saw it. He came to Charlotte one time. And I don't think I've seen any more.
Tell her how you got your name.
My name? Well, I was born the day after Warren G. Harding was inaugurated president. So I guess I thought that was a good idea to give me that name.
A good, strong name.
Yeah,
Very good, strong name.
thank you.
So a lot of history with presidents with you, with your being named after one and seeing Herbert Hoover at a young age.
Yeah.
So were you drafted into the military, or did you join?
Well, I joined, but I was getting, it wouldn't have been long until I would have been, my number would have been called. And maybe another 6 months, something like that.
What branch did you join?
Well, the Air Corps was part of the Army. I just joined the Army, and I asked if I could get in the Army Air Corps, and I finally did. And so that's where I spent the next 3.5 years.
Where did you do your basic training?
That was in Fort Jackson, Florida, Fort Jackson, South Carolina. And then they sent me to Keesterville, Mississippi as a trained for aircraft mechanic. And then I finally passed the aviation cadet program and got it there. Then I started flying. My first flying was in Douglas, Georgia. Montgomery, Alabama.
What did you wind up doing?
What?
What did you wind up doing the bulk of the time in the?
Well, I'm training now,
Yeah.
and when I finished and got my wings, they sent me to instructor school, so I became a flight instructor.
Oh, wow.
And I was there until World War in Europe ended, and then they sent me to Del Rio, Texas to fly twin-engine bombers. And that's where I was when getting ready to go to Japan by the time they dropped the atomic bomb.
So you were in the Air Corps. Did you ever make it overseas? Did they send you over afterwards, or?
I didn't make it overseas.
So you're one of the lucky ones.
Yeah, I was.
You got to stay stateside.
They canceled your orders, didn't they?
What?
You canceled your orders. You were scheduled to go overseas.
Yeah, they hadn't scheduled me yet. I was training to go over.
Okay.
Yeah. But we were gonna get a newer plane to fly if we invaded Japan.
Tell her about the planes that you trained in and what they flew over in Europe. The type of planes
That I trained in.
that you trained pilots when they went over to Europe.
Yeah. Well, the first plane I flew was a twin wing. It's called a PT-13, Primary Training 13. And the next was BT-13, I believe, and then on up to advanced, and they sent me back to fly the BT-13, which had a canopy. The first plane didn't have a canopy. You flew with it,
Oh, wow.
with the air blowing over you. And the one I flew had a canopy, but it did not have retractable landing gear. And the next, in the advanced training, we had retractable landing gear, almost like about like a fighter plane.
Which one was your favorite to fly? Did you have a favorite?
Well, that AT-60 Advance was probably my favorite.
Any reasons why? Was it just more fun?
Yeah, and it was more sleek, it's faster. Yeah.
So in your training, let's see how to word this. You trained, you started off in Fort Jackson, and then you went to a few different areas, obviously. Do you have any fun stories or interesting stories from your time in training? You know, did you ever butt heads or have any confrontations with instructors or other cadets?
Well, I tell this, I think I've told them probably, but in instructing, I had 5 students, and this, you'd change they'd stay with you about 9 weeks, and then you get a new bunch. But on one of these group that I had, we had a fellow about my age, I guess, maybe a little younger, and but he couldn't remember anything. I had to tell him to fasten his seatbelt every time he got in.
Oh, no.
And when we got up there, and I'd say, "Close your canopy," you know. So one time I decided to have a little fun and test him, and I didn't tell him to fasten his seatbelt. But when we got up in the air, I said, "Close your canopy." And so I rolled the plane on top, and he fell down on top inside the canopy. I hope it scared him. I don't know.
I would think it would.
And we learned.
That's one way to learn.
He didn't make it though.
He survived the training,
But he got washed out.
but he washed out of.
Washed out.
He didn't fall out of the plane that day, is what you're saying.
Did you ask me something?
No, I just said he didn't fall out of the plane that day.
I probably shouldn't have done that because the canopy might have come open.
Well, at least you had him close it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you never, thankfully, never made it overseas, but we're in the military. So when, VJ Day was over, the end of the war, when did you head home? Did you stay in the military a little bit longer, or were you released from service?
I came home, and I stayed in the Air Force Reserve though for the next 24 years.
Wow.
So I had a total of about almost 30 years.
Wow.
And your rank, tell her your last rank.
Yeah. What was the highest rank you achieved?
A lieutenant colonel.
Lieutenant Colonel.
I got to do during the war that I thought I was pretty proud to be able to do that. I flew to Washington, D.C. one time, and I had a cousin that worked in the Pentagon, so she got me in the Pentagon, and I was able to walk around and see how things worked up there.
Oh, how neat. What time was that? What year? Do you remember what year that was?
It was about probably 1944.
Wow.
The war was still going on in Europe as well as Japan.
What do you remember about the Pentagon?
It's big. It was a unusual building. Of course, you can see it in pictures, and that sort of impressed me.
Mm-hmm. That's
Where
pretty
did you
neat.
fly from? Which, you flew from a base, an air
Yeah.
base? Where did
Well,
you fly from?
At the end of each 5 students we were teaching, when they graduated from that and went to the next phase, we had about 4 or 5 days off, and they would let us take a plane. We call it navigation training. You'd go by yourself or somebody with you,
Mm-hmm.
and you make out an itinerary and fly, which I did a lot of times. I flew home several times and flew to Washington, Mississippi, a couple other places, Texas. But that's how I got up there.
Where was the
I was-
local airport that you
I was at,
flew into? When you flew home, where did you fly to? At what airport? Or you're nearby here?
well, when I come to Charlotte, I'd land here, and it was a military base. I had to land on a military base,
Right.
and of course they'd fill a plane up.
Mars
in case.
Field. That was Mars Field.
Mars Field, yeah,
Morrisville.
yeah. And I was flying out of Montgomery, Alabama.
Coming back to your childhood, your high school years, your before the military, do you have any memories of what Concord was like when you were a kid and growing up? You know, we have photographs of it. So in some cases, we have some, home videos of what downtown looked like, or the farm areas looked like in the 20s, 30s, early 40s. But being able to talk with someone who lived there, lived here during that time, what are some of your memories? What are some things you remember of what Concord was like during that time?
Well, I thought it was pretty big, but it was pretty small, really. And as we came across Tryon Street, I told Warren, I said, it hadn't changed much downtown. So it still looks about the same.
Except I don't think it's called Tryon Street.
Union Street.
Oh, that's not Tryon.
That's in Charlotte, yeah. So, tell us about race relations. What was that like back then?
Well, they stayed apart. It was strictly separate. But we got along fine with the black people. In fact, we had a family that lived right close to us, and my mother was somewhat of a healer. And if had children would get sick, they'd come and get mom, and she'd go down and help them. But you know that?
No, I didn't know anything about
And
that.
tell us more about that. What's a healer? I've never heard that
I
before.
never heard that.
What?
What's a healer? I've never heard that before.
Well, just a person, they don't have any training, but they seem to have something that can help somebody.
Yeah.
He's my nephew, so that we could, I'm telling stuff he didn't know, I guess.
That's something they call holistic healing today. They call it holistic
Mm-hmm.
work today, healing
Yeah.
today, I guess.
She probably took a lot from the land. She knew what herbs and what things to put together to help alleviate a cold, or when somebody had the sniffles or trouble breathing. She probably
Yeah.
just self-taught.
I'll give you an example. This young family had a couple of children and had a roadster. he had a rumble seat. You ever hear the term rumble
Sure
seat?
have.
And they came in our driveway, driving real fast, and the little girl was in the rumble seat, and she had passed out. And it covered my locks out, I think.
Mm.
But Mom helped them get her straightened out.
Yeah, because the hospital, Cannon Memorial, wasn't built until
36.
it's mid-30s. I should know the date, but you know, it was either local doctors
Yeah.
or it was healers like your mom.
Yeah.
Had you heard that word before, healers?
Mm-hmm.
I've never heard that.
So I'm curious about a story of like, did you have a black friend, or everybody stayed strictly apart?
We stayed apart. It's just this one family that lived close to us. I don't believe there's any boys my age.
Did you know any of the wealthy families in the area, the white wealthy families?
Well, nobody was wealthy then.
Nobody wealthy in Concord.
I'm talking about out in the country. I didn't know people in Concord.
Oh. So
Well,
You were more
you
or
didn't
less-
know anyone that would have had a slave or had slave history?
I don't know.
You were more or less isolated. You're isolated.
Mm-hmm.
That's the way I grew up in the country.
Yeah.
We weren't aware of anything outside of the neighborhood, really.
Yeah,
Yeah,
more that
so-
more rural life.
And television didn't come along until, what, the 50s? Early 50s?
Yeah,
Or late
49,
Late 40s.
Do you remember getting your first television set?
Yeah.
What was that like?
I remember that.
Well, other people had them. We were sort of late getting one because we couldn't afford it. But we were living in Richmond, Virginia, and we bought one that not like that wooden case, you know. We watched a lot of television.
That would have been
Wow.
him and my mom after they were married.
Oh, tell me about meeting your wife. Tell me about that. How did you meet her?
Her name and
Well,
Yeah, tell me her name and how y'all met.
her name was Maxine Severe, and she had one sister who was my age, 9 years older than her. And of course, when I knew her sister, and I probably saw her around there, but when she was just a small young girl when I left for the Air Force. And when I came back, I met her again, and then we started courting, and got married.
what did her sister Willeen say about you dating Maxine?
Yeah, I didn't have too good a reputation in Concord because Willeen told her when she started dating me, she said, "You can't date that Harding Shinn."
Oh no, why is that?
I don't know. They thought I was worse than I was, I guess.
How did you, so you had met her, you knew her sister. Do you remember a memorable date that you all went on, or anything that really stands out when you knew you were in love with her?
Well, it was sort of a strange thing. I met her in July of 1949. That's when our first date. And then in September, I was in school at NC State, so I went back there, and she went to Washington, D.C. to work. So we courted mostly by letters.
Mm.
We'd only get to see each other for about every 4 to 5 weeks. And it was wonderful to see her when we did to get together. Yeah.
Wow, that's tough. Long distance is hard today with cell phones and computers. Like,
We did talk by telephone a couple of times.
It was pretty expensive back then.
Yeah, it was, yeah.
how long did y'all court?
Well, we, I'd say July of 49, and we got married in September of 1950. So next year,
Okay.
about a year and a half.
Where did y'all get married?
Kerr Street.
Kerr Street Baptist?
Kerr Street,
Right down here.
First Street? I guess it was, I don't know.
Kerr Street Baptist Church.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Sir Kerr doesn't sound right, does
No,
it?
it
It's
doesn't.
McGill.
McGill Street Baptist Church.
Okay, yes.
Yeah.
The building is still there.
Yeah.
But they've moved out near Afton now, correct?
And I had one more year of college, so we got an apartment at Vettville at NC State.
Okay.
Vettville was made out of old Army barracks. I think they had 2 bedrooms and a little living room, kitchen. But we lived our first year there.
So I'm assuming you studied mechanical engineering at NC State. And you mentioned earlier that you liked math. That was one of your favorite subjects. And you worked with planes when you were in the Air Corps. So is that what led you to want to go on and study mechanical engineering? Or was there something else that inspired that?
That inspired what?
You going on into mechanical engineering?
No, not really. I had a good friend in the Air Force who had finished school, college in mechanical engineering. So I knew I needed an education. I didn't know what to take, but I thought about him. And so I selected that.
So was that a 3-year, 4-year program at State?
Yeah, 4 years.
4-year program?
Took me 5.
Nothing wrong with that. You completed it. That's what counts. And plus you got married in the meantime too. That adds on an extra stressor for finishing school.
Yeah.
So you graduated 51?
Yes.
51 from NC State. And then where did you go?
Well, we went to Richmond, Virginia, Atlanta, Georgia, back to Richmond, and then to Charlotte.
What year did you come home back to Charlotte?
1952 or 3. Okay. One was born in 4, not 54. It must have been 53, I guess.
Back to Charlotte.
Yeah,
Tell
it
me.
was, yeah.
Tell me a little bit more about Maxine. She was from Concord, your wife?
Yes.
When was she born?
They lived down on East Corman Street.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is their house still there?
No, I don't think so.
Well, that one on the corner, that's not where she grew up.
And well, they lived in a house on the corner.
Yeah, that house is still there, isn't it?
Yeah.
But that's not where she was born. You're saying she
No.
lived
no.
there.
She was born in Virginia.
Oh.
Yeah.
Do you know what brought her family to Concord? Why they moved here?
Her dad was a mechanic on a on hosiery, and they seemed to get a job anywhere because the ladies liked hose. And so he moved around some. Both she and her sister were both born. Well, one of them was born in Tennessee, and one was born in Virginia.
What
So
was what was the name of the town?
Bristol.
Yeah, so one of them, Bristol's divided.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of them was born on one side, one was born on the other,
Yeah.
Tennessee and Virginia.
Her father was what was her father's ancestor? A famous ancestor.
John
Sevier.
John
Sevier.
Sevier, first governor of Tennessee, but I don't know how close it was.
Sevierville,
Yeah.
Tennessee. Yeah, I was wondering when you mentioned her last name, because I'm from up in the mountains and I know Sevierville and Sevier
Yeah.
County, so I wondered if there was a connection with that last name and
Yeah.
what the connection was to here in Concord.
Yeah.
We were told at one time that was the last that was the last to carry that name because he had 2 daughters. But I don't know how true is that true? Were they the last? Was she the last of the Seviers to carry the Sevier name? Or
You know, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I think so.
I'm not sure.
that's what I heard.
Wow.
Yeah.
So she ended up, her family moved here, and since he was in hosiery,
Yeah.
probably ended up at one of the mills locally.
Yes. Hugh Gray had a mill in Hooverville. Maybe another one. I think he worked at 2 or 3.
And there were a few here in the county, a few of those mills locally. So how neat. So y'all moved back to Charlotte. Did you ever come back to Concord, or have you just
Oh,
been in
yeah.
Charlotte the whole time?
See, my family still lived over here.
Mhm.
Most of them would come once a month or thereabouts.
Okay. How, you were mentioning earlier, coming up on Union Street, how it's changed a little bit. How much would you say it's changed from, your childhood coming into town and selling a rabbit to the local grocer to today? Like, is that a big change in your opinion, or do you still see some pieces that remind you of the old Concord?
It just doesn't look like it's changed very much. It looks the same.
Kept a lot of its character.
Yeah.
That's a good thing. Any other? We've covered kind of the big things, military, childhood, marriage.
Yeah.
What about his lifetime occupation?
Oh yeah, you mentioned 24 years in the reserves, but what was your lifetime occupation in mechanical engineering? What did you end up doing the rest of your life once you got your degree,
Oh.
career-wise?
Well, I had several jobs, but I ended up with a company out of Cleveland, Ohio, that and I worked out of the Charlotte office, chemical company, and that's where I spent the last 22 years of my career.
What was the name of the company?
Mogul, Mogul.
They did water treatment. They treated mills and all sorts of places to get chemicals out of the water
Mm-hmm.
to make make it run better. I don't know. Why don't you describe what your chemical treatment was?
Oh, it was, the textile mills were a good customer. They had boilers, and then we made chemicals to put in the boilers to keep them from scaling up so they'd work all the time. And these cooling towers, you've seen them probably, would use something on that to keep algae and stuff like that off of them.
Mm-hmm.
And most anybody that had water in their systems, they were a potential customer.
So you moved back to Charlotte. You mentioned he was born 1954. How many other children did you and Maxine have?
Two.
Two?
Yeah.
And a daughter named Ashley.
Yes, she's the youngest.
When was she born?
1959.
It's close to the same time my mom was born. Ashley's a good name.
Thank you.
I'm a little biased.
Go ahead and name your children just in case, that's
Yeah,
in there.
please do tell me your children's names and their birth dates as well.
Why name that?
Or just their names and birthdays, or why, if you want to share that as well.
Well, he's a junior, and Mark's my second son. We just like the name. And Ashley, we lived in Atlanta, and we had a good friend couple. His name was Ashley, and Maxine liked that name so well, so she said, well, if we ever have a girl, I'm gonna name her Ashley.
It's a good name. It is. You can name boys or girls that.
So that's what happened.
How many grandchildren?
9,
9. Any great grandchildren?
12.
Wow. So you have a legacy.
Well, I guess so.
Gentlemen, any other stories you want me to work through? Anything that you want to share? Any other memories that have come up as we've been talking that you can just tell me anything?
I can't think of anything else.
Tell her your birth date and how old you'll be in 3 months.
Give us the date of your birthday and how old you'll be.
March the 5th, I'll be 101.
Wow. 2022.
Yeah.
Because you were born March 5th, 1921.
Yeah.
So this year was a huge anniversary, a
Yeah.
big birthday.
What would be your advice to younger people?
Yeah, any pearls of wisdom?
Well, be honest. Don't expect things to come too easy, because you don't become self-sufficient overnight. It takes a while to. You have a lot of help, or some people do, and be sure and use that help. But honesty is a thing, that most important thing, because it seems now, with all this stuff flying around in the air comes on, it gets so much trash that you don't know what's true and what's not.
What would you contribute your health and longevity to?
I think one thing, growing up on a farm, eating good, fresh food, drinking fresh milk every meal, that had something to do with it.
Mm-hmm. What are some memories growing up? Jerry, when were you born?
39.
39? So you're my dad's age. What are some memories of Jerry growing up? Him being a cousin or a nephew? Nephew. What are some memories of your nephews growing up?
Well, I had so many I can't remember, but Jerry was the oldest of his family, and he got a lot of attention. And so many of our family would come to our house for Sunday lunch, and we always enjoyed those. Did you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, I think most people would really want to have some advice on how to live to 100. Can you give any advice on that?
No.
None?
I don't believe I could.
You worked outside all the time, even after you got to work.
My doctor told me this 15 years ago, I guess. He said, you inherited good genes, because I have never really been sick. Really sick, I have a lot of colds and things like that.
Did other of your family members live long time too?
No, the oldest of all the other six that died was 85. So,
That's still a pretty good long life.
Yeah, he's lived longer than anyone in the
but
entire.
she was the only one that, well, she was 85. I had a sister died at 82. Jerry's father died at 78. Is that right?
Yeah.
And a couple of them died at 75. Well, one, my brothers died at 56.
Mm.
So he had a heart problem.
You're probably right. It probably is all that fresh milk and
Yeah, that was
homegrown.
only to a certain age. You stopped drinking fresh milk probably when you were 30, didn't you? Or younger.
Probably, I don't
I don't
remember.
recall it.
He
Yeah, I do
eats
recall
a
it.
lot of vegetables and eats meat in moderation. He doesn't drink any now. I mean, he would only drink occasionally growing up, and didn't smoke. When did you stop smoking? After you got out of the military?
I never did smoke much.
No. Okay, so healthy lifestyle. Thing.
Healthy lifestyle.
Yeah.
Well, and Cabarrus County was, I mean, obviously, the 20s, you had the Prohibition movement. So it was a dry county back then, but you were just a child at that point.
Yeah.
And then, 30s and 40s, Cabarrus County was dry up to a point. I know.
Mecklenburg was dry until the early 70s.
Mm-hmm. And then Cabarrus County didn't get liquor by the drink until the 90s or so.
Maybe,
'Cause my
maybe
husband-
80s, I'm
My
not sure.
husband remembers, I think he was maybe in middle or high school, so that would have been probably around the 90s when they got liquor by the drink. So, any memories of speakeasies, or that would have been a little bit long before your time, but that you would have been able to, but was drink easy to come by growing up, or was this more of a dry,
Yeah.
especially being in the Baptist
We-
faith?
There was never any liquor in our home, so I was not exposed to it. I'll tell you one thing that's sort of funny. Nobody used tobacco in our family either, and we had a family that lived pretty close. One of them boy was about my age, and they'd get their dads chewing tobacco, and so I tried that a couple times. And I remember coming home one time, and my mother said, "What's wrong?" I said, "Oh, I just don't feel good, I think." I think I'd probably turned green. I was so sick.
Were there a lot, I know you mentioned your family did grow some cotton. Were there a lot of tobacco farms in Cabarrus County?
No tobacco was raised down here. It's in Eastern Carolina.
Eastern.
That would be interesting. Tell her about you picking cotton.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, your memories of working on the farm.
Oh, yeah. I'd hoe the cotton, work it, and when it ready to pick, I picked it. And I tried to pick 100 pounds a day, which is a good bit of cotton. And so I kept getting it up. One time I picked 200 pounds a day.
Wow.
That was me about 15, 16.
Oh, wow.
Just the time.
100 pounds a day.
Yeah.
Everybody.
That's a lot of cotton to be growing.
Yeah.
And to pick in one day.
Yeah.
I know up through, I can't remember what year, there used to be cotton scales on Market Street years ago. And that's where, from out in the county, they would bring the cotton in and weigh. Did you ever bring cotton into town to weigh in the 30s?
We would bring our cotton in a big wagon. We'd get up at 4 or 5 o'clock, well, probably 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. We have the wagon packed drive to Concord over there. Can't remember exactly what, there was a gin there, cotton gin,
Mm-hmm.
and they would gin the cotton.
When you say drive, you meant a horse. You had a horse and wagon, right?
Horse and wagon, yeah.
You waited at the farm too. You waited individually to pay the people, because I remember witnessing that myself.
Mm-hmm.
You weighed cotton to the
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
people that picked it.
You'd pull a wagon on
Yeah,
there
like to the
and weigh
grain.
it, and yeah.
It was a place on the granary. I
And then when
remember.
the cotton's all out, you'd weigh the wagon again, and you know how much cotton you had.
Subtract the difference.
And it's a good experience. Everybody ought to have to go through that one day of their life, picking cotton or hoeing cotton.
Well, I've heard from some old, quote unquote old timers, remembering the wagons coming into downtown, and I don't know exactly where the cotton gin was. I know in the late 1800s there was a scale, and I guess there was an official who would weigh and go through all that, and they'd bring the cotton in, weigh it at the scales on Market Street. Because we have some photographs of the wagons turning from Union and down Barbarick right across from here to go on to Market Street. But I don't know where the gin was, but I've heard people saying that they remember horse and buggies bringing cotton into town, 30s, 40s.
Yeah.
So that would be interesting, the horse-drawn wagons coming in
That's how they did it.
motor vehicles.
That's-
I don't remember.
Refresh my memory, where's Market Street?
Market is just the next street down between here and Spring.
It's still called Market?
Yeah,
Okay.
Yes, sir.
that's probably what it's called, Mark.
Market after the cotton market, from what I
Do
understand.
you remember the gin?
Yeah, but it wasn't, ours was over off of Kerr Street over there. You remember that, Jerry?
No,
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I think that might have been gone by my time.
Right
Maybe
close to
down
the-
closer to the railway.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
And seemed like it was
I remember when
a coal company right close too.
that could have been down here on Corbin, where the coal company was, on Corbin Street. Coal and Ice Company. Could have been, I don't know. I can remember the livery stable, when there were two livery stables in Concord in the 50s, still existed in the 50s myself.
Mm-hmm.
What's the famous Smith guy's name that you went to school with? He owns a motor speedway and all that. What's his name?
Who was
Smith.
that? Smith.
Yeah.
Racetrack, man.
Yeah, he's in the car business, and you told me the story about him riding the fancy cars around Concord.
Oh, Bruton Smith.
Bruton, yeah. Tell her your remembrance of Bruton and what he
Yeah.
was like.
He was younger than I am. He always tried to have a different car every time he drove.
Did he go to school with you?
No,
No?
I went to Minecraft. He probably went to Concord.
Okay.
But like I say, he was probably 10 years younger than I am.
What kind of cars did he drive around?
A different one. He traded the cars. He was always doing something like that.
He told me that they could always tell when Bruton was coming because he always drove the newest or fanciest car. And they had a circle here. Where was that circle that they would drive around?
I don't remember that.
Wasn't in Canalpas, was it? Was it what we call Idiot Circle, was it? And we called that in the 50s.
Where was that?
That's right down there where the stadium is now, where that the street with the did have the median, but now it's all a street
Mhm.
now. That's the only one I know that people used to ride around and show off their cars or flirt with each other and all that stuff.
They'd
So-
go cruising.
Yeah,
Cruising.
Go
yeah.
cruising.
So I don't know if you want to say anything about Hell's Half Acre, or if you had any stories about those kind of places here in Concord.
I don't think so.
Well, tell her what Hell's Half Acre was.
I tell what?
Tell Ashley what Hell's Half Acre was.
I remember.
Well, that was a nickname we gave, where, it's a crossroads,
27 and 601.
yeah, that's right. And they had I guess it was a beer joint. They used to have, police would have to raid it about every Saturday night.
Oh no.
So they got the nickname Hell's Half Acre.
When there a lot of motorcyclists
Yeah,
that
I
hung
think
out
so.
there after
Yeah.
the war, because there weren't that many cars, and it was cheap to drive a motorcycle. We had a motorcycle then.
Oh wow. And that was 27 and 601?
Yeah, at Midland, yeah.
Okay.
At the square in Midland, you might say, I guess, a corner there.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of that before.
Well, nobody, they don't want you to say, people in Midland don't like that term now.
The old timers know it though.
Yeah.
We know it.
Jerry, you'd heard it called Hell's Half
Oh,
Acre.
yeah, yeah, definitely.
Well, I go to Cowboy Church, and it's right there on the corner of 601 and
Oh.
27. And the preacher there, he's called it Hell's Half Acre before.
Oh, he does?
Yeah, so he knew about it.
I know some people that don't like that term.
And I guess it was just called that because of being a little bit of a
Yeah, rough.
sketchy,
Where
rough,
People got arrested, drank and got arrested.
drinking.
Fight, a
So,
lot of fights.
okay. That's a unique name.
Mm.
Yeah.
That's a little piece of history that I'm gonna, if I ever hear one of the old timers mention it, now I'll know what they're talking about. Yeah. Well, this has been amazing.